The massive space station hung in the void like a silver jewel. It was bigger than most moons and sparkled with millions of lights. Ships from across the galaxy moved around it like tiny insects. This was Nexus Prime, the most important place in known space. Today, it would host the biggest meeting in 3,000 years. Admiral Taemin walked through the long hallways of his flagship. His boots made sharp sounds on the metal floor. He was a tall alien with blue skin and 4 arms. His eyes glowed red when he was angry, and right now they burned like fire. In his hand he carried a datapad filled with reports that made his blood boil. "Humans," he said to his aide. "These humans think they can do whatever they want. They take our planets. They block our trade routes. They act like they own the galaxy." The aide nodded quickly. Everyone knew not to argue with Admiral Taemin when he was angry. The admiral had destroyed entire fleets in battle. He had conquered star systems. He was one of the most feared warriors in the galaxy. Inside the Great Council Chamber, representatives from 12 powerful civilizations sat in a huge circle. Each species looked different. Some had scales, others had fur. Some were tall and thin, others short and wide. But they all shared one thing. They were all worried about humans. Chancellor Vextar stood up slowly. He was ancient, even by his people's standards. His race had ruled parts of the galaxy for 50,000 years. When he spoke, everyone listened. "My friends," he said in a voice like grinding stone, "we face a new threat. For the first time in millennia, a species dares to challenge our authority. These humans spread across our space like a disease. They ignore our laws. They reject our wisdom." On the giant screen behind him, images appeared. Planets that once belonged to alien civilizations now flew human flags. Space stations built in neutral zones. Trade ships carrying human goods through routes that had been alien territory for thousands of years. "But that is not the worst part," Chancellor Vextar continued. "Show them the recordings." The screen changed. Now it showed grainy video from security cameras and ship sensors. Human ships moved through space in ways that should have been impossible. They turned without slowing down. They stopped without using engines. They vanished from one place and appeared in another. "Their technology makes no sense," said Captain Sora. She commanded the biggest warship in the hegemony fleet. "Our scientists have studied these recordings for months. They say what we see cannot happen, yet here it is." Admiral Taemin stood up. His red eyes blazed brighter. "I say we stop talking and start fighting. 1 human ship, 10 human ships, 100 human ships, it does not matter. We have 50,000 warships here today. We can crush them easily." Many aliens in the chamber made sounds of agreement. They had ruled the galaxy for so long that they could not imagine losing to anyone, especially not to a young species like humans. But Dr. Young Mi, an alien scientist with gray skin and large black eyes, raised one thin hand. "Perhaps we should learn more about them first. These humans appeared in our space only 50 years ago. Before that, no one had ever seen them. Where did they come from? How did they build so many ships so quickly?" "It does not matter where they came from," Admiral Taemin said loudly. "What matters is that they will leave, one way or another." Chancellor Vextar nodded slowly. "The Admiral speaks wisdom. We have been patient too long. These humans must learn their place." He looked around the chamber. "I call for a vote. All who agree that we should use force against the humans, stand now." One by one, the representatives stood up, first the military leaders, then the politicians, then even some of the scientists. Only Dr. Young Mi remained seated, but her voice was too quiet to be heard over the sounds of agreement. "It is decided," Chancellor Vextar announced. "We will send our combined fleets to human space. We will find their homeworlds. We will show them what happens when primitive species challenge their betters." Admiral Taemin smiled for the first time in days. "My fleet is ready to leave immediately. We will locate the human homeworlds and demand their surrender if they refuse." He let the threat hang in the air. Captain Sora stepped forward. "Request permission to join the attack, Chancellor." My ship alone carries enough weapons to destroy a planet. These humans will see reason when they face the eternal victory. Permission granted, Chancellor Vextar said. Take your finest warriors. Show these humans why we have ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. As the meeting ended, aliens throughout the chamber talked excitedly about the coming war. They spoke of quick victory and easy conquest. They made jokes about human weakness and primitive technology. None of them seemed worried about fighting a species they had never really studied, but far away, in the empty space between stars, something listened to their every word. A single human ship floated in the darkness, so advanced that alien sensors could not detect it. Inside the ship, Captain Wujin sat in his command chair and watched the alien meeting through intercepted transmissions. He was a quiet man with dark hair and calm eyes. He wore a simple uniform with no fancy decorations. He looked like he could be anyone's neighbor or friend, but appearances could be deceiving. "Captain," said his communications officer, "should we warn Earth about the alien fleet?" Captain Wujin shook his head slowly. "Earth already knows. They have known this day would come for a very long time." He stood up and walked to the main screen, which showed the distant glow of Nexus Prime. "How long have we watched them, Lieutenant Min-Su?" 200,000 years, sir, the young officer replied, "since before they learned to make fire." "And in all that time, what have they learned?" Lieutenant Min-Su thought for a moment. "They have learned to build bigger weapons, sir. To conquer more worlds, to fight longer wars." "Exactly," Captain Wujin said sadly. "We gave them knowledge. We guided their development. We hoped they would grow wise. Instead, they grew arrogant." He turned back to his crew. "Send a message to the fleet. Tell them the aliens are coming." "What should the fleet do, sir?" "Wait," Captain Wujin said simply. "Let them come to us. Let them see what humans can really do when we stop hiding." The alien fleet began to move. 50,000 ships of every size and shape headed toward human space. They carried millions of soldiers and enough weapons to destroy entire solar systems. Their commanders were confident of victory. They had no idea that they were flying toward the most important lesson in galactic history. Soon, very soon, they would learn why humans had spent so long in the shadows. They would discover that some species choose to hide not from fear, but from mercy. The galaxy was about to change forever, and it would take exactly 4 minutes and 12 seconds. The alien fleet spread across space like a net made of steel and fire. 50,000 ships moved through 12 star systems, searching for any sign of human presence. The sensors swept through asteroid fields and gas clouds. They checked every planet and every moon. Commander Jinho led a group of 20 cruisers through the Kepler Nebula. The nebula was beautiful, filled with swirling clouds of purple and gold gas. But it was also dangerous. The gas blocked sensors and made navigation difficult. Perfect place for enemies to hide? Anything on sensors? Jinho asked his crew. "Nothing yet, sir," replied the sensor officer. "Wait, I am getting strange readings from Grid 7. Jinho looked at his screen. Grid 7 was supposed to be empty space, but the sensors showed massive metal structures hidden inside asteroids. "Take us closer," he ordered. As his ships moved through the asteroid field, Jinho could not believe what he saw. Someone had hollowed out the asteroids and built factories inside them. These were not simple mining operations. These were advanced industrial complexes that could build entire fleets. "Sir," said his engineering officer, "these factories are more advanced than anything we have. Look at these power readings. They are using technology we do not understand." But the strangest thing was that the factories were empty. All the lights were on, all the machines were ready to work, but there were no workers anywhere. It was like someone had just left for lunch and never came back. "How long since they were abandoned?" Jinho asked. "Based on the decay patterns, maybe 3 days, sir, 4 at most." Jinho felt a chill run down his spine. 3 days ago, the alien fleet had been at Nexus Prime, planning their attack. Somehow, the humans had known they were coming. They had evacuated these factories just in time. Meanwhile, Admiral Nari commanded the search from her flagship, Sovereign's Wrath. She was a smart military leader who had won many battles by thinking ahead of her enemies. Right now, she was very worried. "The pattern is too perfect," she told her staff officers. "Every human colony we find has been evacuated recently. Every factory has been emptied. Every space station has been abandoned. They are leading us somewhere." "Where would they lead us, Admiral?" asked her tactical officer. "Away from their real bases," Nari replied. "Away from their home worlds. They want us to waste time searching empty systems while they prepare for battle somewhere else." She studied the star charts on her command screen. "Send a message to all fleet commanders. Tell them to be ready for anything. These humans are not running away. They are planning something." But not all alien commanders were as wise as Admiral Nari. Captain Dong-Su led a squadron of destroyers through a system called Volf 359. He was young and eager to prove himself in battle. When his sensors detected a human ship, he did not think about traps or plans. "There!" he shouted, pointing at his screen. "Human cargo vessel, bearing 27 Mark IV. All ships moved to intercept." The human ship was small and looked harmless. It was only 200 meters long, much smaller than Captain Dong-Su's destroyers. It looked like the kind of ship used to carry food and supplies between planets. "Human vessel," Captain Dong-Su broadcast. "You are ordered to surrender immediately. Stop your engines and prepare to be boarded." The human ship did not respond. It continued flying in a straight line as if nothing had happened. "Sir," said Dong-Su's weapons officer, "should we fire a warning shot?" "No warnings," Dong-Su replied angrily. "These humans need to learn respect. All ships target the human vessel. Fire when ready." But as the alien destroyers moved to attack positions, something impossible happened. The human ship simply vanished. Not the way ships normally disappeared when they jumped to hyperspace. Not the way ships looked when they used cloaking devices. The ship just stopped existing. "Where did it go?" Dong-Su demanded. I do not know, sir," his sensor officer stammered. "It was there, and then it was not there. Our sensors show nothing." For 17 seconds, the alien crew searched their sensors for any sign of the human ship. They found nothing. Then, without warning, alarms began screaming throughout the destroyer Swift Justice. "Contact!" the sensor officer yelled. "The human ship is right behind us." Captain Dong-Su spun around to look at his rear screen. The human cargo vessel hung in space behind his fleet, exactly where nothing had been just moments before. "Impossible," he whispered. "How did it get there?" "Sir," his weapons officer called out, "the Swift Justice is firing at the human ship." On the main screen, Captain Dong-Su watched his fellow destroyer unleash everything it had. Plasma cannons that could melt through steel fired beam after beam at the small human vessel. The energy weapons were so powerful that they lit up space. Like a small sun, the beams hit the human ship directly. But instead of exploding or burning, the ship seemed to absorb the energy like a sponge soaking up water. The plasma beams bent around the hull and disappeared into nowhere. "What kind of shields are those?" someone whispered. Before anyone could answer, the human ship vanished again. This time, when it reappeared, it was right next to the Swift Justice. The destroyer was 800 meters long and carried enough weapons to level a city. Next to it, the human cargo ship looked like a toy, but looks could be deceiving. "Sir," the communications officer screamed, "the Swift Justice is reporting massive system failures." On the screen, Captain Dong-Su watched in horror as the mighty destroyer began to fall apart. Not from weapons fire or explosions. The ship simply started to break down. Its lights went out section by section. Its hull began to crack and split. Within 3 minutes, the Swift Justice was nothing but floating debris. 800 crew members died without the human ship firing a single shot. Then the human vessel sent a message on all frequencies. The voice was calm and polite, like someone giving directions to a lost tourist. "You wanted to find us?" the voice said. Congratulations, you found us. The cargo ship vanished one final time. This time, it did not come back. Captain Dong-Su sat in his command chair staring at the wreckage of the Swift Justice. His hands shook as he tried to understand what he had just seen. His remaining ships floated in space like frightened animals. "Sir," his communications officer said quietly, "what should we report to command?" Captain Dong-Su looked at the debris field where a powerful warship had been just minutes ago. "Tell them," he said slowly, "that we are not hunting the humans anymore. The humans are hunting us." Across the galaxy, similar reports began to reach Admiral Nari. Ships that vanished and reappeared at will, weapons that did not work, technology that made no sense. And always, human vessels that seemed to be playing with the alien fleets like cats playing with mice. "Admiral," her tactical officer said, "perhaps we should reconsider this attack." Admiral Nari stared at the reports coming in from across the galaxy. Every alien commander was reporting the same thing: humans who could do impossible things. Ships that broke the laws of physics. Technology that was thousands of years ahead of anything the aliens understood. "No," she said finally, "we cannot stop now. We have 50,000 ships. Even if the humans have advanced technology, they cannot have very many ships. We will mass our forces and attack together. Numbers will win this war." She was wrong about many things, but she was especially wrong about human numbers. Humanity had been building ships for a very long time, much longer than anyone in the galaxy could imagine. The Vanguard system had 3 beautiful planets and one very important location. It sat right at the border between alien space and the unknown regions where humans lived. If the aliens wanted to attack human worlds, they would have to come through Vanguard first. Admiral Taman knew this, which was why he brought every ship he could find to this system. 47,000 warships floated in space around the 3 planets. It was the largest fleet in galactic history. Ships stretched from horizon to horizon, their hulls gleaming in the light of the system's star. Each ship carried crews trained for war. Each ship mounted weapons that could destroy cities. Together, they carried enough firepower to turn entire planets into dust. Admiral Taman looked out at his fleet and smiled. No force in the galaxy could stand against such power. "Report," he ordered his tactical officer. "All ships in position, sir," came the reply. "Sensors are active across the entire system. Nothing can enter or leave without us knowing about it." Captain Sora commanded her battle group from the Bridge of Eternal Victory. Her ship was 2 kilometers long and carried guns that fired energy beams powered by small stars. She had never lost a battle. She had never even been seriously challenged in a fight. "Any sign of human ships?" she asked her crew. "Nothing, Captain," her sensor officer replied. "Space is empty beyond the system edge. No ships, no energy signatures, no movement of any kind." For 12 hours, the alien fleet waited. 47,000 ships sitting in perfect formation, ready for battle. Their crews checked weapon systems over and over again. Their commanders studied attack plans and target lists. Everyone was ready for the humans to arrive, but the humans did not come. "Maybe they are afraid," suggested one junior officer on Admiral Taman's bridge. "Or maybe they are smarter than we thought," Admiral Nari said quietly. She had joined the main fleet with her own ships, bringing the total number to just over 50,000 vessels. "They know they cannot win against so many ships?" Admiral Taman was about to reply when every alarm in the fleet began screaming at once. "Contact!" shouted sensor officers across 50,000 ships. Single vessel appearing in the center of our formation. Admiral Taman spun around to stare at his main screen. There, floating calmly in the exact middle of his massive fleet, was a human ship. It had not flown in from outside the system. It had not jumped out of hyperspace. One moment the space had been empty, and the next moment the human ship was there. The vessel was unlike anything the aliens had ever seen. Most alien ships were built like weapons, all angles and armor and obvious gun ports. This human ship looked almost alive. Its hull seemed to flow like liquid metal. Its surface was perfectly smooth, with no visible weapons or engines. It was also tiny. At 400 meters long, it was smaller than most alien escort ships. Next to the huge alien dreadnoughts, it looked like a minnow swimming with whales. "Identify yourself," Admiral Tamman broadcast on all frequencies. The reply came immediately, spoken in a calm and polite voice. "UES Defiance. Captain Wujin commanding. You have 30 seconds to withdraw from Terran space before we respond to your invasion." For a moment, silence filled the com channels of 50,000 ships. Then laughter began to spread from bridge to bridge. One tiny ship against 50,000. One human against millions of alien warriors. It was the funniest thing most of them had ever heard. "Did he just threaten us?" Captain Sora asked her bridge crew, wiping tears of laughter from her eyes. "I think he did, Captain," her tactical officer replied, still chuckling. Admiral Tamman was not laughing. Something about the calm confidence in the human captain's voice made him nervous. But he could not show weakness in front of his entire fleet. "Human vessel," he broadcast. "You are surrounded by 50,000 warships. Surrender now and your death will be quick." 20 seconds, Captain Wujin replied calmly. "Sir," Admiral Nari called from her own ship, "perhaps we should listen to him. Something about this feels wrong." 10 seconds, the human captain said. Admiral Tamman's pride would not let him back down. "All ships," he ordered, "target the human vessel, fire at will." Captain Sora was the first to obey. Her ship's main gun charged with the power of a star, and fired a beam of plasma hot enough to melt moons. The energy beam streaked across space toward the tiny human ship, but something impossible happened. The beam stopped. Not like it hit a shield that absorbed the energy, not like it was deflected by armor. The plasma beam simply stopped moving, hanging in space around the human ship like a frozen flame. "What ... Captain Sora started to say that then. Every ship in the alien fleet opened fire at once. 50,000 warships unleashed every weapon they had. Energy beams, missile swarms, gravity bombs, quantum torpedoes, enough destructive power to crack a planet in half, all focused on one small human vessel. And all of it stopped. The energy beams hung motionless in space. The missiles floated without moving. The bombs sat silent and still. Around the human ship, a beautiful aurora of frozen weapons fire created a sphere of deadly light. For 17 seconds, the aliens stared in growing horror at their useless weapons. Then Captain Wujin spoke again. "Our turn," he said simply. The human ship moved. It did not fire weapons. It did not launch missiles. It simply began to fly through the alien formation. But its movement tore holes in space itself. Reality bent and twisted around the Defiance. Like water around a stone, the first alien ships to die were caught in the gravitational wake of the human vessel. Space-time sheared around them, cutting their hulls into pieces smaller than atoms. Crews that had fought in 100 battles simply ceased to exist. "Captain." Sora watched in terror as the human ship flew past her position. The Defiance did not even seem to notice her massive battleship. It was focused on something else, the mathematical destruction of an entire fleet. Evasive maneuvers. She screamed at her pilot, but there was nowhere to run. The human ship moved through space like it owned every cubic meter of the universe. Where it passed, alien vessels died, not from explosions or fire, but from the simple impossibility of existing in the same space as human technology. Admiral Tamman tried to coordinate a defense, but his communications were failing. Ships throughout his fleet were sending their last transmissions as waves of twisted space-time reached them. The careful formation he had built over months fell apart in minutes. "All ships retreat," he finally ordered. "Scatter and retreat." But most of his ships could not move. The human vessel's passage through space created fields of distorted gravity that trapped anything nearby. Ships that had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years became sitting targets for forces they could not understand. Admiral Nari managed to get her ship's engines working long enough to reach the edge of the combat zone. From there, she watched the end of galactic naval power. 50,000 ships reduced to glowing clouds of debris in just over 4 minutes. When it was over, the human ship stopped in the center of the destruction. Space around it still glowed with the frozen weapons fire from the alien fleet. "Captain," Wu-Jin's voice came across all frequencies one more time. "This is what happens when children play with weapons they do not understand," he said sadly. "We gave you every chance to choose peace. You chose war instead. Remember this day when you decide whether to threaten human colonies again." The Defiance vanished as suddenly as it had appeared, leaving behind only wreckage and a few scattered escape pods. In 4 minutes and 12 seconds, the strongest military force in galactic history had been completely destroyed by a single human ship. Admiral Nori sat in her command chair, staring at the debris field that had once been an invincible fleet. Her hands shook as she realized the truth. That would change the galaxy forever. Humans were not the primitive species everyone had thought. They were something far more dangerous. They were a species with the power of gods and the patience of saints, and the aliens had just made them very, very angry. The rescue ships arrived 3 days after the battle. They found a graveyard of twisted metal floating in space where the greatest fleet in galactic history had once proudly sailed. 50,000 warships reduced to debris clouds and radiation. Only a few hundred escape pods survived to tell the impossible story. Captain Sora floated unconscious in her escape pod when the rescue ship found her. Her mind had snapped from witnessing something that should not have been possible. When she finally woke up in the medical bay, she kept talking about weapons that ate space and ships that moved through folded reality. The doctors thought she was suffering from battle shock. They had seen it before in soldiers who had survived terrible fights. But when they checked the sensor logs from her escape pod, they found something that made their blood run cold. The recordings showed exactly what Captain Sora had described. Commander Subin worked for Hegemony Intelligence, the secret organization that gathered information about threats to alien civilization. She was one of the smartest investigators in the galaxy, known for solving mysteries that others could not understand. When the reports from Vanguard System reached her desk, she knew she was facing the biggest puzzle of her career. "Bring me everything we have on humans," she ordered her team. "I want historical records, genetic samples, archaeological reports, everything. Something this advanced does not just appear out of nowhere." Her team worked for weeks, searching through databases that went back hundreds of thousands of years. They found traces of human activity scattered throughout galactic history like breadcrumbs, leading to a terrifying truth. The first clue came from ancient star charts, systems that have been marked as mysteriously abandoned throughout galactic history. Entire civilizations that had simply vanished without explanation, leaving behind only empty worlds and radiation signatures that matched what the survivors had seen at Vanguard System. "Look at this pattern," Subin told her assistant, pointing at a holographic star map. "Every 5,000 years, somewhere in the galaxy, an advanced civilization just disappears. No war, no plague, no natural disaster, they are just gone." The second clue came from genetic analysis. Several alien species that had been declared extinct thousands of years ago showed DNA markers that were suspiciously similar to human genetic patterns. Not identical, but close enough to suggest common origins. Dr. Young Mi, the scientist who had questioned the attack on humans, made the connection that changed everything. She was studying ancient ruins on a dead world called Kepler 442b. When she noticed something odd about the mathematical constants carved into the stone walls. "These numbers," she told Subin over a secure communication link, "they are not random. They follow patterns that match human mathematical systems, not any known alien knowledge." Subin felt her 4 hearts skip a beat. "How old are those ruins?" "Carbon. Dating says they are 200,000 years old," Dr. Young Mi replied. "Built long before any known galactic civilization achieved spaceflight." The third clue came from the archives of the Galactic Council itself. Hidden in classified files that most aliens had never seen were reports of impossible ships dating back millennia. Ships that appeared and disappeared without explanation. Vessels that could move faster than light without using known technology. Craft that seemed to exist outside normal spacetime. All the reports had been dismissed as myths. Stories told by frightened crews who had seen something they could not understand. But when Subin compared them to the sensor logs from Vanguard system, the similarities were undeniable. "They have been here all along," she whispered to herself as the pattern became clear. "Watching us, guiding us, protecting us from ourselves." The final piece of evidence came from an unexpected source. Deep in the archives of a religious order that worshipped ancient sky gods, Subin found reference to beings who had taught the first fire and showed the way to the stars. The descriptions of these beings matched human anatomy perfectly. Subin assembled all her evidence and requested an emergency meeting with what was left of the Galactic Council. Most of the military commanders were dead, killed at Vanguard system. The surviving civilian leaders gathered in a secure bunker on the hegemony homeworld, afraid that human ships might appear at any moment. "Honored leaders," Subin began her presentation, "I have discovered the truth about humanity. And that truth changes everything we thought we knew about galactic history." She activated her holographic display and showed them the evidence piece by piece, the ancient ruins with human mathematical constants, the genetic connections between humans and extinct species, the historical reports of impossible ships, the pattern of civilizations that had vanished throughout galactic history. "For 200,000 years," she concluded, "humans have been active in our galaxy. They have guided our development from the shadows. They have prevented wars that would have destroyed us all. They have been our silent guardians since before we learned to make fire." Chancellor Vextar, one of the few survivors from the original War Council, shook his ancient head in denial. "Impossible. If they had such power, why did they hide? Why did they not rule openly?" Before Subin could answer, every communication system in the bunker activated at once. The walls filled with the image of a human man sitting calmly in what appeared to be the bridge of a ship. He looked ordinary, the kind of person you might pass on the street without noticing. But his eyes held the weight of centuries. "Because," Captain Wujin said, answering Chancellor Vextar's question directly, "ruling through fear creates resentment. Ruling through force creates rebellion. We preferred to guide you toward wisdom slowly, hoping you would choose peace over violence." The alien leaders sat in stunned silence as the human captain continued. "We seeded your worlds with knowledge when you were ready for it. We prevented asteroid impacts that would have ended your civilizations. We stopped wars between species before they could escalate to galactic destruction. We have been your guardians for longer than your oldest myths remember." "Then why reveal yourselves now?" asked Dr. Young Mi, who had joined the meeting via hologram. Captain Wujin's expression grew sad. "Because you finally forced our hand. When you declared war on our children, the human colonies you discovered, we could no longer remain hidden. We gave you 200,000 years to grow beyond your primitive instincts. Instead, you chose to threaten innocent civilians the moment you found them." On the screen behind him, star charts appeared showing the locations of human installations throughout the galaxy. Bases hidden in nebulae where no alien had ever thought to look. Shipyards built inside dead stars, using the stellar cores as power sources. Research stations that existed in folded spacetime, invisible to normal sensors. The scope of human civilization was staggering. They had infrastructure in every major star system. They had technology that made alien science look like cave paintings. They had been watching every alien species develop for millennia, carefully guiding progress while staying hidden. "How many ships do you have?" Admiral Nari asked quietly. She had been promoted to overall military commander after most of her superiors died at Vanguard. "Enough," Captain Wujin replied simply. "We stopped counting at 10 million active vessels. That was 50,000 years ago." The number hit the alien leaders like a physical blow. 10 million ships, and that was their old count. The entire alien military force that had attacked at Vanguard had been less than 1% of what humans had built half a century ago. "What do you want from us?" Chancellor Vextar asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "The same thing we have always wanted," Captain Wu Jin replied. Peace, cooperation, the end of senseless violence between intelligent species. We do not wish to rule you, we never did. But we will not allow our children, any of our children, including your species, to be threatened with extinction. As he spoke, reports began flooding in from across the galaxy. Human ships were appearing everywhere, no longer bothering to hide their presence. They did not attack or threaten. They simply observed, their quiet presence a reminder of how completely the balance of power had shifted. Some alien governments fell within hours as their populations learned the truth. Others opened immediate communication channels with humanity, hoping to negotiate peace before it was too late. The galaxy that had existed for thousands of years was transforming before their eyes. Captain Wu Jin's image began to fade from the screens. We will be in contact soon to discuss new arrangements for galactic peace. Use this time wisely. Learn from your mistakes. And remember, we are not your enemies. We are your teachers, and we have been very patient students of your development. When the transmission ended, the alien leaders sat in silence for a long time. Finally, Dr. Young Mi spoke what they were all thinking. We are children who just learned that our parents have been watching us all along. And we have been very, very bad children. 6 months had passed since the Battle of Vanguard system, and the galaxy looked completely different. The old power structures that had ruled for thousands of years crumbled like ancient stone. Some alien governments collapsed entirely when their people learned the truth about human guardianship. Others quickly elected new leaders who promised to cooperate with humanity. Admiral Nari stood on the observation deck of her flagship, looking out at a sight that would have been impossible just months ago. Human ships flew alongside alien vessels in the same formation. The sleek, flowing lines of human technology mixed with the angular, aggressive designs of alien warships. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. She had been chosen as the hegemony's new ambassador to humanity. It was not a job she had wanted, but she was one of the few senior military officers who had survived Vanguard system. More importantly, she was one of the few aliens who understood just how outmatched they really were. Today, she would meet Captain Wu Jin face to face for the first time. His ship, the Defiance, hung in orbit above the hegemony capital world like a silver reminder of human power. The planet's leaders had been nervous about allowing a human warship so close to their most important world, but they had no choice. When humans suggested something, it was not really a suggestion. The shuttle that carried Nari to the human ship was small and simple. But as they approached the Defiance, she could see that the human vessel was anything but simple. Up close, its hull seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal. Strange patterns of light moved across its surface in ways that hurt to look at directly. Ambassador, her pilot said nervously, their docking bay is opening. The docking bay was unlike anything Nari had ever seen. Instead of the mechanical, industrial look of alien ships, the human vessel's interior seemed almost organic. The walls curved smoothly, and soft light seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Captain Wu Jin was waiting for her at the airlock. He looked exactly like he had in the holographic transmissions, ordinary, calm, and completely unthreatening. But Nari knew better than to be fooled by appearances. This was the man who had single-handedly destroyed the largest fleet in galactic history. Ambassador Nari, he said with a slight bow. Welcome aboard the Defiance. I hope your journey was comfortable. It was, thank you, Nari replied formally. She had practiced this meeting many times, but actually standing next to a human was stranger than she had expected. He looked so normal. Captain Wu Jin led her through corridors that seemed to adjust their shape as they walked. The ship's interior was larger than it appeared from outside, as if space itself bent to accommodate human needs. Your ship, Nari said carefully, it does not follow normal physics. Normal is a relative term, Captain Wu Jin replied with a slight smile. Physics are just rules. When you understand the rules well enough, you can ask them politely to make exceptions. They entered a conference room where other alien ambassadors were already waiting. Representatives from 7 different species sat around a table that seemed to be made of crystallized light. Nari recognized Dr. Young-mi among them, along with commanders and politicians from across the galaxy. "Please sit," Captain Wujin sighed, gesturing to an empty chair that formed itself from the floor as Nari approached. "I know this meeting is difficult for all of you. Change is never easy, especially when it comes so suddenly." "Captain," said Ambassador Tae-sung from the Dominion, "my people want to know if humanity plans to conquer our worlds." "No," Captain Wujin replied immediately. "We have no interest in conquest. We never did. Ruling through force creates more problems than it solves." "Then what do you want?" asked Na-Ri. Captain Wujin was quiet for a moment, looking out through the transparent wall at the stars beyond. "We want what we have always wanted, peace between species. An end to the endless wars that have plagued this galaxy for millennia, cooperation instead of conquest." "And if we refuse?" asked Ambassador Minho from the Trade Federation. "Then you refuse," Captain Wujin said simply. "We will not force you to cooperate. But we will also not allow you to threaten innocent populations or start wars that could destroy entire civilizations." Dr. Young-mi leaned forward. "What does that mean, practically speaking?" "It means the galaxy has new rules," Captain Wujin explained. "Species that want to expand peacefully, trade freely, and develop their cultures will be left alone. Species that want to conquer their neighbors or commit genocide will find their fleets mysteriously disabled before they can cause harm." He activated a holographic display that showed current events across the galaxy. Several alien military forces had attempted to attack their neighbors in recent weeks. In each case, their weapons had simply stopped working at the crucial moment. Their ships had been left floating harmlessly in space until rescue vessels arrived. "We are not interested in micromanaging your civilizations," Captain Wujin continued. "But we will intervene when necessary to prevent large-scale violence." "How long have you been doing this?" Nari asked. "Longer than your oldest historical records," he replied. "Do you remember the Great War between the hegemony and the Dominion 8,000 years ago? Both sides were preparing to use planet-killing weapons. You would have destroyed a dozen star systems." Chancellor Vexstar, who had joined the meeting despite his advanced age, nodded slowly. "The war ended suddenly when both fleets suffered mysterious technical failures. Historians never understood why." "That was us," Captain Wujin said. "We disabled your weapons and created circumstances that forced both sides to negotiate peace. We have done similar things hundreds of times throughout galactic history." The alien ambassadors sat in stunned silence as they realized how many mysterious events in their history had actually been human intervention. Wars that ended unexpectedly. Natural disasters that were prevented at the last moment. Technological breakthroughs that appeared just when they were needed most. "Why reveal yourselves now?" Dr. Young-mi asked. "Why not continue working in secret?" Captain Wujin's expression grew sad. "Because the galaxy is reaching a critical point in its development. Your civilizations have become powerful enough to destroy entire star systems. Your conflicts are growing larger and more dangerous. We could no longer guide you safely from the shadows. Also," he added, "your attack on human colonies forced our hand. We could not allow our children to be threatened, even by species we have protected for millennia." Ambassador Taesung shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "What happens to our militaries? Our fleets?" "They remain under your control," Captain Wujin replied. "But they will be monitored. Any attempt to use them for conquest or genocide will result in immediate intervention." "And our governments?" "Also remain under your control as long as they govern responsibly. We have no desire to replace your leaders or change your cultures. We simply want to prevent the worst excesses of violence and hatred." Nari found herself asking the question that had been bothering her most. "Do you see us as children?" Captain Wujin considered this carefully. "In some ways, yes, but not in a condescending way. Every species goes through phases of development. Humans went through the same phases long ago. We learned to move beyond tribal violence and competitive destruction. Other species can learn the same lessons." "How long did it take humans to learn these lessons?" asked Dr. young me. About 50,000 years of very hard experience, Captain Wu Jin replied. We made every mistake you are making now, and many others besides. We nearly destroyed ourselves several times before we learned wisdom. And now you want to help us avoid those mistakes? Yes, but only if you want our help. We will not force wisdom on anyone, but we will prevent you from destroying yourselves or others in the learning process. The meeting continued for several hours as the alien ambassadors asked hundreds of questions about the new galactic order. Captain Wu Jin answered each one patiently, explaining how human oversight would work in practice. Most alien governments would continue to function normally. Trade would continue between species. Scientific research would proceed without interference. The only changes would be in military matters, the end of conquest wars, and the prevention of genocide. This will not be easy for my people to accept, Nari admitted. We have been independent for thousands of years. You are still independent, Captain Wu Jin assured her. You are just no longer allowed to use that independence to harm others. Think of it as growing up. Children need rules to keep them safe. Adults follow those same rules because they understand why the rules exist. As the meeting ended, each ambassador was given a communication device that would allow direct contact with human representatives. They were also shown star charts indicating which systems now had permanent human observers. One final question, Nari said as they prepared to leave. What happens if we fail? What if our species cannot learn to live in peace? Captain Wu Jin looked out at the stars again, his expression thoughtful. Then we wait, he said simply. We have been patient for 200,000 years. We can be patient longer. But we will not allow the galaxy to burn while we wait for you to grow wise. As Nari's shuttle returned to her flagship, she looked back at the Defiance floating serenely in space. The human ship looked so small and peaceful. It was hard to believe it. 1 year after the Battle of Vanguard System, the galaxy was learning what it meant to live under human protection. For most species, daily life had not changed much. People still went to work, children still went to school, and governments still governed their people. But everyone knew that invisible guardians were watching from the shadows. Captain Sora walked through the gardens of New Seoul, a human colony world that had volunteered to host alien visitors. She was no longer a military officer. The doctors had declared her unfit for service after her mind broke at Vanguard System. Instead, she had become something unexpected, a teacher. The key to understanding humans, she told her class of young alien diplomats, is to remember that they think in very long time periods. When they make a decision, they consider what will happen 1,000 years from now. Her students were from 7 different species, all learning how to work with humanity in the new galactic order. Some were eager to cooperate. Others were still angry about losing their independence. All of them were confused about how to deal with a species that had such overwhelming power yet used it so carefully. Teacher Sora, asked Young Ki, a young hegemony officer, why do the humans not simply tell us what to do? If they have so much power, why do they ask for our opinions? Sora smiled sadly. Because power used carelessly creates fear. Fear creates hatred. Hatred creates rebellion. The humans learned this lesson long ago. They would rather have willing partners than frightened subjects. Meanwhile, on the other side of the galaxy, Commander Subin was discovering just how much the humans had hidden from galactic civilization. Her new job was to study human technology and find ways for alien science to catch up. So far, she had learned enough to realize how little she actually understood. Look at this, she told her research team, pointing at a human device the size of her palm. This device can generate enough power to run a city for a year. Our best scientists cannot even figure out how to open it without destroying it. Dr. Young Mi, who had joined Subin's research team, studied the readings from their scanners. The energy signatures do not match any known physics. It is like they are using completely different laws of science. Maybe they are, Subin replied. Maybe when a civilization gets old enough, they learn to change the rules instead of following them. The device they were studying was a gift from Captain Wu Jin. He had given similar devices to research teams from every major species along with basic instruction manuals. But the manuals assumed knowledge that alien science did not possess. Terms like quantum foam manipulation and dimensional substrate engineering might as well have been magic spells. "We are like children trying to understand how adults build houses," Dr. Youngmi said. "We can see the results, but we do not understand the tools or methods." "Then we learn," Subin replied firmly. "Humans did not become this advanced overnight. They learned step by step, probably over hundreds of thousands of years. We can learn too." But learning was proving more difficult than anyone had expected. Human technology was not just advanced, it was based on completely different ways of thinking about reality. Where alien science tried to work within natural laws, human science seemed to negotiate with those laws as if they were suggestions, rather than rules on the diplomatic front. Ambassador Nari was discovering that working with humans required a completely different approach to problem solving. Traditional alien diplomacy focused on threats, bribes, and complex negotiations. Human diplomacy was much simpler. They listened to all sides, identified the core problem, and found solutions that worked for everyone. The Trade Federation wants exclusive rights to the Kepler mining systems, she explained to Captain Wu Jin during one of their weekly meetings. The Dominion claims those systems belong to them by historical right. Both sides are threatening war if they do not get what they want. Captain Wu Jin nodded thoughtfully. "What do the systems contain that makes them so valuable?" "Rare earth elements needed for advanced electronics," Nari replied. "Both civilizations need them to maintain their technology." "And how much do they need?" Nari checked her datapad. "The Trade Federation needs about 10 million tons per year. The Dominion needs about 8 million tons per year. And how much do the systems produce?" "Current estimates suggest about 50 million tons per year if properly managed," Captain Wu Jin smiled. "Then there is no problem. Both sides can have what they need with plenty left over. The issue is not scarcity, it is pride." "But they both claim exclusive rights to the entire systems," Nari protested. "Claims based on pride rather than need," Captain Wu Jin replied. "Watch and learn." Within a week, human mediators had arranged a solution that neither alien side had considered. The systems would be jointly administered by both civilizations, with each taking only what they actually needed. The excess production would be sold to other species with the profits shared equally. Both sides got what they required, and both made money from the arrangement. "How did you convince them to accept this?" Nari asked after the agreement was signed. "We asked them what they really wanted," Captain Wu Jin explained. "They thought they wanted control, but what they actually wanted was security. They were afraid the other side would cut off their access to vital resources. Once we guaranteed that would not happen, the need for exclusive control disappeared. And if they had refused to cooperate, then their mining equipment would have mysteriously stopped working until they agreed to share," Captain Wu Jin said with a slight smile. "But we prefer not to use such methods unless absolutely necessary." Similar solutions were being implemented across the galaxy. Border disputes that had raged for centuries were resolved in weeks once human mediators identified the real issues beneath the political rhetoric. Trade wars ended when humans showed both sides how cooperation would make them richer than competition, but not everyone was happy with the new order. Some alien leaders felt humiliated by their loss of independence. Some military commanders resented being reduced to peacekeeping forces. Some politicians found it harder to maintain power when they could not promise their people victory over traditional enemies on the hegemony capital world. Protests erupted when the government announced it would be reducing military spending and investing more in education and infrastructure. General Kyung-ho led a group of officers who wanted to restore the old ways. "We are warriors," he shouted at a rally of disgruntled soldiers. "We do not bow to anyone, especially not to humans who hide behind superior technology." His words attracted thousands of supporters who felt the same way. They demanded that the hegemony government reject human oversight and return to the old system of independent military action, The protest might have turned into a rebellion, but something unexpected happened. Captain Ujin appeared at the rally, alone and unarmed. He walked calmly through the crowd of angry soldiers to the speaker's platform. "General Kyung-ho," he said politely, "may I address your supporters?" The general was so surprised that he stepped aside without thinking. Captain Wujin took the microphone and looked out at the crowd of angry faces. "I understand your frustration," he began. "You were trained to be warriors. You built your identity around strength and independence. Now you feel like those things have been taken away from you." The crowd quieted, surprised by his calm tone and obvious understanding of their feelings. "But consider this," Captain Wujin continued. "What is the highest purpose of a warrior? Is it to win battles? Is it to defeat enemies? Or is it to protect those who cannot protect themselves?" He gestured toward the city around them. "Look at your world. Look at your people. They are safer now than they have been in thousands of years. Your children grow up without fear of invasion. Your elderly do not worry about war destroying their homes. Is this not what warriors should fight to achieve? But we are not fighting for it," General Kyung-ho protested. "You are protecting us. We are useless." "Wrong," Captain Wujin replied firmly. "We are preventing large-scale wars between civilizations. But we cannot be everywhere. We cannot stop every crime, prevent every conflict, protect every innocent person. That is your job now. Instead of fighting wars of conquest, fight wars against poverty, ignorance, and injustice." He pointed to the crowd. "Every one of you has skills that can be used to make your people's lives better. Engineering skills can build better cities. Tactical knowledge can improve disaster response. Leadership abilities can guide positive change. You are not useless. You just need to find new purposes for your abilities." The crowd was silent for a long moment. Then slowly some of them began to nod. Others looked thoughtful. A few still looked angry, but they were now a minority. "Change is hard," Captain Wujin concluded. "But growth requires change. You can choose to grow with the galaxy, or you can choose to be left behind by history. The choice is yours." When he finished speaking, he handed the microphone back to General Kyung-ho and walked away through the crowd. No one tried to stop him. No one shouted insults or threats. They just watched him go, thinking about what he had said. Within 6 months, General Kyung-ho had retired from the military and started a new career as a disaster relief coordinator. Many of his former supporters joined civilian organizations that helped people instead of fighting wars. The Prots. 5 years had passed since the galaxy learned the truth about humanity. For most species, the new order had become normal. Children grew up learning about human guardianship in school. Trade flowed more freely than ever before. Wars between civilizations had become a thing of the past, but peace was not the same as happiness. And many aliens still struggled with their new place in the galaxy. Dr. Youngmi stood in her laboratory on Nexus Prime, studying the latest human technology gift. This time it was a small cube that could apparently create matter from pure energy. Her team had been working on understanding it for 3 years without success. "We are missing something fundamental," she told her assistant, Jong-soo. "The humans say this device works by asking reality politely to rearrange itself. But what does that actually mean?" Jong-soo looked up from his own scanner readings. "Maybe it means exactly what it sounds like. Maybe humans have learned to communicate with the basic forces of the universe." "That sounds like magic, not science," Dr. Youngmi replied. "Maybe there is no difference," Jong-soo suggested. "Maybe when science becomes advanced enough, it looks like magic to less developed species." Their conversation was interrupted by an alarm from the communication console. Dr. Youngmi activated the incoming message and found herself looking at Captain Wu Jin's familiar face. "Dr. Youngmi," he said, "I have a proposition for you. Would you like to visit a human research station? It might help you understand how our technology actually works." Dr. Youngmi nearly dropped her scanner. In 5 years, no alien had been invited to visit a human facility. The humans shared technology and knowledge freely, but they kept their actual bases and research stations private. Yes, of course, she stammered. When? Now, if you are available, Captain Wu Jin replied. We will send a shuttle to collect you. Within an hour, Dr. Young-mi found herself aboard a human transport ship unlike anything she had ever seen. The walls seemed to be alive, shifting and changing as the ship moved through space. There were no windows, but the ceiling showed a perfect view of the stars as if they were flying through open space. Where are we going? She asked the human pilot, a young woman named Yunji. The Forge, Yunji replied. It is one of our oldest research stations, built inside a collapsed star about 80,000 years ago. Inside a collapsed star? Dr. Young-mi repeated, how is that possible? When you understand how space and time actually work, the inside of a collapsed star is not much different from anywhere else, Yunji explained. It just has some interesting properties that make it useful for certain types of research. The journey took 3 hours, during which Dr. Young-mi tried to understand how a ship could travel faster than light without using any recognizable form of propulsion. The human pilot tried to explain, but her descriptions involved concepts that had no equivalent in alien science. We fold space around the ship, Unji said. Like taking a sheet of paper and bringing two distant points together by bending the paper. The ship never actually moves faster than light, we just make the distance shorter. But folding space would require enormous amounts of energy, Dr. Young-mi protested. Not if you ask space nicely to fold itself, Unji replied with a smile when they arrived at the forge. Dr. Young-mi understood why it had taken humanity 80,000 years to build it. The research station was enormous, larger than most planets. It existed in a pocket of normal space-time carved out from the heart of a collapsed star. The gravitational forces that should have crushed anything instantly were held in perfect balance by human technology. Welcome to the forge, Captain Wu Jin said as he met them at the docking bay. This is where we conduct our most advanced research, and where we learn to ask reality to change its mind about what is possible. He led Dr. Young-mi through corridors that defied geometry. Rooms were bigger on the inside than the outside. Walls curved in directions that should not have existed. Scientists worked with equipment that seemed to be made of crystallized mathematics. How do you do this? Dr. Young-mi asked, her head spinning from trying to understand what she was seeing. Very carefully, Captain Wu Jin replied. And with a lot of patience. It took us about 40,000 years to learn how to build this place. Another 30,000 to make it safe to work in. They entered a laboratory where human scientists were working on something that made Dr. Young-mi's instruments go crazy. Energy readings that made no sense. Gravitational fields that pointed in impossible directions. Matter that existed in multiple states simultaneously. We are designing a new type of star, explained Dr. Haiyan Wu, the lead researcher. One that burns cold instead of hot and produces knowledge instead of light? That is impossible, Dr. Young-mi said automatically. Only if you accept the current rules about how stars work, Dr. Haiyan Wu replied. But rules can be changed if you know how to ask properly. Captain Wu Jin led her to another section of the station where the walls were transparent, showing the incredible forces of the collapsed star around them. Matter compressed to impossible densities. Time flowing at different rates in different areas. Space itself twisted into shapes that should not have been able to exist. This is why we hid for so long, he explained. When we first achieved this level of technology, we used it badly. We fought wars that tore holes in reality. We built weapons that could destroy entire dimensions. We nearly ended all existence in the universe. What stopped you? Dr. Young-mi asked. We learned wisdom, Captain Wu Jin replied simply. We realized that power without wisdom leads to destruction. So we spent the next 100,000 years learning how to be wise before we used our full capabilities again. And now you are teaching us the same lesson? We are trying to, he confirmed. But we cannot force wisdom on anyone. You have to choose to learn it yourself. They continued the tour, visiting laboratories where humans worked on projects that seemed more like art than science. creating new forms of life, designing pocket universes, building machines that could think with the power of entire galaxies. "Why are you showing me this?" Dr. Youngmi finally asked. "Because your species is ready for the next step," Captain Wu Jin replied. "You have shown that you can accept guidance without becoming resentful. You have used the knowledge we gave you responsibly. You have helped other species adapt to the new order. We think you are ready to begin learning our deeper secrets." "All of our species, or just me?" "It starts with individuals who prove they can handle the responsibility," Captain Wu Jin explained. "You will return to your people with new knowledge. You will share what you can safely share. Others will follow your example. Eventually, entire civilizations will be ready to join us as true partners instead of protected children." Dr. Young Mi spent 3 more days at the forge, learning concepts that would have taken her species 1,000 years to discover on their own. She saw how humans had learned to work with the fundamental forces of reality like partners instead of trying to dominate them through brute force. When she returned to Nexus Prime, she brought with her not just new knowledge, but a new understanding of humanity's true purpose in the galaxy. They were not conquerors or rulers. They were teachers, patiently waiting for their students to grow wise enough to join them as equals. But not everyone was ready for this revelation. On the Dominion homeworld, Chancellor Vextar called an emergency session of what remained of the old council. The ancient leader had never accepted human authority, and Dr. Youngmi's reports about advanced human technology only made his anger burn hotter. "They mock us," he told the assembled representatives. "They show off their power while keeping us ignorant. They treat us like pets in a zoo." "But the galaxy is more peaceful now than it has been in millennia," protested Ambassador Minho from the Trade Federation. "Peace bought with submission is not true peace," Chancellor Vextar replied. "It is slavery with comfortable chains." He activated a holographic display showing secret research his scientists had been conducting. "We have been studying human technology for 5 years. We have learned enough to build weapons that might actually work against them. The weapons looked crude compared to human technology, but they were based on principles that human defenses might not expect. Instead of trying to match human power, Dominion scientists had focused on finding weaknesses in human methods." "What are you suggesting?" asked Admiral Nari, who had joined the meeting despite her role as human ambassador. "I'm suggesting we remind the humans that we are not children to be managed," Chancellor Vextar replied. "A demonstration of our own power. A statement that we will not be ruled, even by benevolent guardians." "And if the humans retaliate?" Nari asked. "Then we die as free beings instead of living as protected slaves," Chancellor Vextar said firmly. The debate continued for hours, but the old Chancellor's words carried weight with species that had once ruled star systems. Some representatives supported his call for rebellion. Others urged caution. A few quietly sent messages to human contacts, warning them of possible trouble. Captain Wu Jin received these warnings with sadness rather than anger. He had hoped the galaxy would have more time to adapt before some species chose confrontation over cooperation. But perhaps this test was inevitable. "What will we do if they attack?" asked Lieutenant Minsu. "The same thing we always do." 10 years had passed since that fateful day when a single human ship changed the galaxy forever. The universe had settled into a new rhythm of cooperation and growth. Though not without its struggles and setbacks, Captain Sora stood in the observation deck of the first joint research station ever built by humans and aliens working together. The massive structure floated in space between 3 star systems, serving as a symbol of what different species could accomplish when they worked toward common goals. Instead of fighting each other, she was no longer the broken woman who had been found floating in an escape pod after Vanguard system. Years of teaching and working with humans had helped her understand that her mind had not broken from witnessing impossible technology. It had simply been forced to expand beyond its old limits. "Professor Sora," called one of her students, a young human named Jaemin. "The delegation from the Spiral Arm Coalition has arrived for the ceremony." Today marked the official opening of the Advanced Physics Research Institute, a joint project involving 12 different species. For the first time in galactic history, humans would be sharing their most advanced scientific knowledge with alien partners who had proven ready to handle such responsibility. Dr. Young Mi walked through the research labs, marveling at how much everything had changed. Alien and human scientists worked side by side, their different ways of thinking creating new insights that neither species could have achieved alone. The cube device that had puzzled her for years now seemed almost simple compared to the technologies they were developing together. "The quantum resonance is stabilizing," reported Dr. Park, a human physicist who had become her research partner. "I think we have finally figured out how to safely fold space without damaging the underlying structure of reality." "Good," Dr. Young Mi replied, checking her own instruments. "The applications for peaceful exploration will be enormous. We could visit other galaxies, explore dimensions we never knew existed." Their work was interrupted by an announcement from the station's communication center. Admiral Nari's voice echoed through the corridors, calling all senior staff to the main conference room for an important briefing. When they assembled, they found Nari standing next to a holographic display showing a map of the galaxy with several systems highlighted in red. Her expression was serious but not alarmed. "We have received reports of unusual activity in the outer rim sectors," she began. "Several species that rejected human guidance have been conducting secret military exercises. Intelligence suggests they may be planning some kind of coordinated action." Captain Wu Jin materialized as a hologram in the center of the room. Even after 10 years, his appearance at meetings still commanded immediate attention from alien personnel. "We have been monitoring the situation," he said calmly. "Chancellor Vextar and his allies have spent the last 5 years building what they believe are weapons capable of challenging human authority. They plan to attack several human installations simultaneously, hoping to prove that our protection is not absolute." "How dangerous are these weapons?" asked Commander Subin, who now served as the station's security chief. "To us, not very," Captain Wu Jin replied honestly. "Their weapons are based on principles we abandoned 50,000 years ago because they are too unstable and dangerous. But they could cause significant damage to civilian populations if used carelessly." "What will you do?" Dr. Young Mi asked. "What we always do," Captain Wu Jin said with a slight smile. "Provide a teaching moment." The rebellion began 3 days later, just as human intelligence had predicted. Chancellor Vextar led a fleet of retrofitted warships armed with exotic weapons toward the human research station at Kepler 442. Similar attacks were launched against human installations in 6 other systems. The weapons the rebels used were indeed dangerous, reality-sharing devices that could tear holes in space-time itself. If they had been used against civilian targets, they could have killed millions of innocent people. But the rebels made the same mistake that every challenger to human authority had made. They assumed that visible human installations were actually important to humanity. Captain Wu Jin watched from the bridge of the Defiance as Chancellor Vextar's fleet approached what appeared to be a major human research facility. The ancient Dominion leader broadcast a declaration of independence as his ships prepared to fire their ultimate weapons. "Humans of the galaxy," Chancellor Vextar announced, "today we prove that your tyranny can be challenged. Today we show that free beings will not bow to self-appointed guardians, no matter how powerful they claim to be." The rebel fleet fired everything they had at the human station. Reality-tearing weapons, quantum destroyers, dimensional bombs, enough exotic firepower to crack a planet. The weapons struck their target, and for a moment, space itself seemed to scream as fundamental forces were twisted beyond their natural limits. When the energy signatures faded, the human station was gone. Completely destroyed, reduced to nothing but expanding clouds of ionized particles. Chancellor Vextar and his fleet celebrated their victory, believing they had struck a meaningful blow against human power. Then Captain Wu Jin's voice came across all communication frequencies as calm and polite as ever. "Thank you for the demonstration," he said. You have just destroyed a holographic projection that was designed to test your new weapons. The real research facility is safely hidden in a pocket dimension 3 light-years away. The celebration on the rebel ships died instantly as they realized they had been allowed to attack a fake target. Worse, their weapons had been monitored and analyzed during the attack, giving humans complete information about rebel capabilities. Your weapons are indeed dangerous, Captain Wujin continued. Dangerous enough to kill billions of innocent people if used against populated worlds, which is why they must be removed from your possession immediately. What happened next became known.